All right, YouTube, today let's talk about building your own tracks for live performance. Now, today's video is really going to focus on live tracks for worship. However, these tips are going to work for any style of music or any performance that you may be putting together. And by the way, hang with me. Towards the end of the video, I'll actually give you some examples so you can hear some stuff. Right out of college in 2003, I started producing tracks to use for live performance. And at that time, it really wasn't a very popular practice outside of professionals traveling in the Nashville circuit. But I learned from several of my friends how to pull that off, and it allowed me, with a three-piece band at the time, to get a much bigger sound. Now, to be fair, at that time, we were some of the only people in this area that I knew of that had in-ear monitors, and that was a technology that you had to possess if you were going to use click tracks. One of my earlier videos on YouTube talked about producing tracks for an acoustic setup, so I'll link that below. Definitely check that video out. However, today I wanted to talk about building stems for a full band sound and sort of how I make that work. In many cases, when I'm performing live, I'm doing so with a three-piece band or a four-piece band, and so I really want to fill out that void that those 3 or 4 instruments can't fill to make my sound even thicker. One of the main things I do is I put what I call deep end, or a really low rumble pad during the chorus, but the rest of that bed of sound is typically filled with like keyboard stems of some sort, and then I do a lot of guitar layers that really ends up filling out that sound void and makes the band really huge sounding. Now, one of the biggest problems of doing this, and if you have referenced my other video, I said the same thing. Once you start down this road, you have to keep at it, because if you just do 1 or 2 songs that have really thick stems and then you choose to do a few other songs that you didn't prepare stems for, everybody's going to know it. You're going to break the illusion, if you will, if you only do a few songs of the set that have these stems and a few songs that don't. So a couple of rules that I have followed since 2003, which takes some discipline. I'm always prepared with stems for the songs I'm going to do. If there is a new song that I really want to do and I don't have the stems, I don't do it. I record the stems and I'll do it 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. I'm very disciplined on that. I keep a schedule of how I'm going to do things and the way I'm going to do it. If you feel that a song has to be done, especially in the moment of worship or something, sure, go ahead. But I always do those songs by bringing the band way down and picking up like an acoustic guitar, and maybe just have a keyboard player play along with some pads or something, if you feel like a moment of worship needs a really hard right turn. But I'm not going to say, hey, let's do this big song that we heard on the radio 2 days ago and I've just got to do it because I'm so excited about it. The great thing about doing this, your sound is going to be very uniform from song to song to song. You're going to sound bigger always. And then also, it's going to make it very easy for your band to rehearse without getting together. Because if everybody follows that pattern of that click track, when you email the stuff out through Planning Center, everybody hears the way the song's going to be done. They know what parts they're going to play around those tracks. And once we get there together, everybody's rehearsed on their own. Everybody knows the roadmap. There's no surprises. We're playing it this way. Boom, it's done. Now, the other big problem that you're going to run into is actually how to make these tracks. And this is what I'm going to focus on today, maybe to give you a few tips on how to make your own click tracks. Now, I keep calling them stem sets, and I've had people tell me on here before that really I should be calling them multitracks. And so stem sets would be like all of the drums together as one set of stems, all of the guitars together as one set of stems, all of the vocals together as one set of stems. Multitracks would actually be the individual wave files for each guitar part. each keyboard part, each set of vocals. So really, I shouldn't be saying stems, I should be saying multi-tracks to get the terminology correct. So what I do is I'm going to record a set of multi-tracks that I'm going to use live along with the band. Sometimes I record them myself. Many times, because of limited time on my part, I actually hire out the recording of the multi-tracks that I need for whatever arrangement that I'm putting together. Now, you can go to multitracks.com. You can go to several other different sites like Loop Community. You can find several sites where you can purchase these stem sets or multi-tracks for these songs. However, you're going to have to follow their arrangement exactly, and sometimes you can be pegged if you stream this stuff, because it'll pick up on those original tracks, and YouTube's algorithm will know, hey, you're playing some original content. For all of those reasons, I always alter these tracks and make my own. A lot of times I will start with the multi-track session, but I very quickly start to take just about everything out of it, keep just a little bit of it for roadmap. I may chop it up. A lot of these songs that are 9-10 minutes, I chop them down to about 4 or 5 minutes, take out the repeats for all of the bridges, and I get an arrangement that's much shorter and an arrangement that I can handle, and then I pick the key that I'm going to put it in, get all of that together, and then I start layering my own recordings on top of these multi-tracks until I basically rework the whole thing and get it to be something that's mine. And really at that point, by the end of it, almost none of the multi-tracks exist at that point. It's really all of the new tracks that I have put together. Now, I just told you, sometimes I end up recording these tracks myself. A lot of times I'll do the keyboards, guitars. If I don't have time to do that, you're asking, Mark, how do you do it? I reach out to different artists, different producers in Nashville. These guys are out here. They're really more accessible than you would think. A lot of people think there's no way I'd be able to get that somebody to record in Nashville. Everybody in Nashville has a recording studio, and they all side hustle. So as soon as you start to make a few of those connections, you'll call them and say, hey, can you do these stems for this song? I promise you they'll do it. I've had one of the main guys that I use all the time is the guitar player and a member of the band Leland. He also plays for Cody Carnes. He plays for Carrie Job. I use Fiverr.com. There are times when I can't get any of those guys to record because of their time crunch and their schedule, and I literally go on Fiverr.com and I'll hire out somebody on Fiverr to do the stems. So here's how it works, because you're at this point, you're like, how on earth do I do this? I get a click track and I get an acoustic guitar, and I end up playing the main structure, how I want the song to be played. Make sure you get that metronome together for the exact tempo you want. And then I actually use vocal instructions, and I'll say, drums in, bass in, all of that stuff, so that whoever's listening to these stems to record kind of gets an idea of how that arrangement's going to sound with a huge full band. I'll use an acoustic guitar. I'll play the guitar really light to give them an idea of when I want the band to be kind of low, and then I'll strum really big so that they get a good idea of how it's going to sound with a huge band, and how their dynamics should flow on those tracks. At that point, you can take that WAV file and then you just email it to them. That's essentially how I do it. I'll email that to them, and then I'll email them some of the instructions. What they will end up doing is they'll pull that into one of their sessions, whatever DAW they're using, it doesn't matter. They'll pull that into their session. They'll record each of those individual instruments. You tell them how many multi-tracks you want. You work all of that out for the price. Usually I'll get about 4 or 5 different multi-tracks or recorded pieces of information. I'll ingest that back into my session, and then I'll remix that how I want to. Then I'll add my own low end pad that I talked about earlier that I call deep end, that I put on the chorus. I'll add, maybe layer in a few keyboards. There have been times that I've hired one person to do the guitars on one song, and I've hired another person to do the keyboards, and I'll pull it all together at the last minute, mix it down the way I need it to sound live, and then that's it. That's how I get it done. Fiverr's the same way. I'll do a little example demo track with that click track, and then I'll end up emailing it up into the cloud to Fiverr.com. I'll choose somebody by listening to their demos, somebody that I think plays the way I need it played, and then pull the tracks back down out of the cloud once they finish the project, layer it back, throw it back into my DAW, my digital audio workstation, and then I'll remix it the way I need it mixed. And I've had success with that every single time I've done it. It always sounds amazing. And again, you're going to have to mix it to make it your own. Even when you get those files back from somebody, there's been times that I've thrown certain pieces of information that they recorded out because I didn't think it fit the way I wanted it to come in. But making some final adjustments in there, I've always had great success, and I always get amazing tracks. Okay, we're over here at the studio desk. The first selection I'm going to let you hear was a song that I put together for the end of a worship service, but I took like 3 or 4 different worship songs and mashed them together for a little medley. And this is a great example of why you should always work to make your own multi-track sessions, because you couldn't buy this online. This is me taking several different things and putting them together. And a lot of these great worship songs are so long, and you want like bits and pieces of all of them put together, the best parts, the most addictive parts to the ear of all of these different worship songs. And so you take all of those and you mash them together for like this massive medley at the end of a worship set that's only like 3 or 4 minutes long. And you can't buy it. I took this one, and Casey Moore, who does a lot of this stuff for me in Nashville, was actually out of town. So I went on Fiverr.com and I found this guy in South America and sent him some information, told him that I wanted something that sounded like Elevation. Sent him some examples, some example files, some links to YouTube. He came right back, said, it's not a problem. Send me your waves, your wave files that you already have. And I did, and 2 days later, he sent me these back. Now, what I'm going to do is I didn't leave the acoustic guitar on here for you to hear. I've just left his files, all of the stuff he sent me. And so you'll see on here that he ended up doing like a couple of ambient files, some rhythm guitars, some pads, some leads, a chorus, and like an extra chorus stuff. And you'll see right here I have the deep end file that I recorded once I got it back and added to it. I've got that muted right now. I do have my vocal on so that you can hear a little bit of what's going on, and then you'll hear the click track with it. So check it out. Light. If he dresses. 1, 2, 3, 4.
If he dresses the lilies in beauty and splendor, how much more will he clothe you?
If he watches.
How much more will he clothe you? If he watches over every span,
begin
how
to
much
build
more
in.
will he love?
If he dresses.
How much more
3,
will he love you? If he dresses a lily.
He's doing a great job of building. He definitely understood that the band was going to build this up.
How much
Band,
more
big.
will he clothe you? If he watches over every sparrow, how much more
And here we
does
come.
worthy
Is your name.
How
2,
much
3,
worthy is
4.
your name, Jesus. You deserve the praise. Worthy is
Just let you hear the stems.
worthy. You deserve the
I'll add the deep end in.
Worthy is your name.
Chorus. 1, 2.
Worthy
Add a few other pads.
Jesus, you deserve the praise. Worthy is your
Worthy.
Worthy is your name, Jesus. You deserve
4, 4
the praise.
drive. Be exalted in the heavens. 1, 2, 3, 4. Incredible. 2 days, a 2-day delivery on Fiverr.com. All right, so here's another one. This one was recorded by Casey Moore in Nashville. I had to turn this one around pretty fast. He was in town and available. I decided to use this old song by Chris Tomlin called Famous One. I couldn't find any multitracks online. I didn't have time to get it all myself. I ended up doing the keyboards for it. I asked him to do the sets, the stem set of all the acoustic electric guitars that would come into the session. So he handled all the electrics. I handled all of the keyboard stems, or the set of stems for the keys, and then put it all together. While I was doing one, he was doing the other. So within a few days, I was able to turn it around. You can hear my, I'll let you hear my acoustic and scratch vocal.
You are the Lord, the famous one, great is your name in all the earth.
So that's what he ended up getting, and then here's what he spit out with it.
Great is your fame beyond the earth. And you are the...
I'll take out my acoustic. So again, that's just what's sitting under the band, that bed of sound. And then I'll start adding in what I put in. Put some warmth. Put a little church bells in.
With every breath, I'm praising you. Desire of nations and every heart. You alone are God. You alone are God. You are the Lord, the famous one,
So there you go. There's some tips on how to get some of your own tracks made to use live. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email or comment below. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. Hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe. It's going to help me build a community for the future.